Hi, my name is Manuel Ruiz. I'm originally from South Texas. I was born in Alice, Texas, and grew up in Robstown, which I consider my hometown just outside of Corpus Christi, although I currently live in Round Rock, Texas, where I've been for just a little more than 20 years.
What or who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Stephen King and Anne Rice were two of the earlier influences when I started getting to the point where I was reading a lot and writing a lot. When I was younger in elementary, I read a lot of books, and I liked Wrinkle in Time was my favorite book. But as I got older, I was attracted more to the supernatural type stuff, and it was King and Rice. And then eventually there was Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman, I was one of the fortunate people who picked up Sandman #1 back in the late 80s when it first came out, and he's been an inspiration ever since. So all of them have some kind of influence on me. My favorite overall book ever is To Kill a Mockingbird, which is the only book I've read multiple times. And so a lot of different influences, but primarily King and Rice were the primary ones, and Gaiman.
Why do you write teen fiction?
Why do I write teen fiction? I started off writing. I love to write. I loved writing stories since I was in elementary, and I would sometimes write short stories, a lot of poetry. And as I got older and I started taking it more seriously, I found that my strength was writing longer novels. I always I couldn't squeeze all the words I needed. I needed more. I had more to tell, especially when the story hit me. And so when I was younger and I started writing, I got that feeling like when I started reading adult books. I was pretty young. I was reading Stephen King and Anne Rice when I was in middle school, and a lot of the stories that I read back then, it was the excitement you'd capture, and the first time you were scared, the book would give you a nightmare or just made you scared or made you get excited. And so when I started writing, I found that a lot of that same feeling brought up nostalgia, a lot of feelings and just memories of things that happened when I was younger. When you're younger, you have that first time you were excited, the first time you met a girl that you liked or someone liked you, and first time you fell in love or thought you fell in love. And so it's just rekindling that. When I'm writing my book, sometimes I'll get that feeling and hope that a reader gets that same feeling when they read it too. And I've had people come to me afterwards and say, when I read this, it reminded me of this, or I got this feeling. And I'm like, hey, they click, because it's a lonely thing writing. But when someone else connects with you and they get that feeling, it just brings it up, and it's the memories of your past and the excitement that it generates to bring back something that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's mainly why I enjoy it. It's experienced a lot of the first times.
You tend to be drawn to the supernatural. Why?
Why do I tend to be drawn to the supernatural? Growing up, especially with my family in Alice and Robstown and all around, I heard a lot of folk tales from down there, things that happened to my grandmother or to my family members, and eventually a few things did happen to me when I was younger. And some of those are reflected in the style that I write, and some are going to be reflected in some books that I'll be writing in the future. And it's just experiences that happened. A lot of that stuff just stuck with me, and that feeling of being excited and scared at the same time. And it's something I've always been drawn to. It's just something that I feel that I know and I've studied and I've read about. And same thing, it brings you that excitement, that crawling that happens in the back of your neck or something. And that excites me when I'm writing most of the time. So the majority of what I have will typically have a supernatural twist into it.
Tell me about your books.
My books. I have 3 published as of right now. The first book I wrote was the second book that was actually published, called Lobo Coronado and the Legacy of the Wolf. And that one was actually born from my son. He was fairly young, and at the time Harry Potter was big, and he knew Batman was my favorite, was and is still my favorite comic character. So I asked him, hey son, what would you like me to create? What kind of character do you think would be cool? And he says Harry Potter and Batman. So I obviously couldn't create, a Bruce Potter. So I decided I'm going to take this story, I'm going to take this kid, and I'm going to give him the aspects of Batman. What appeals to me about Batman and Bruce Wayne is that he doesn't have any powers. He's a super detective, one of the most intelligent men and best fighters in the world. So I took that aspect of it and I gave it traits to Lobo's father, which we're hoping to do out the story he has as well, in order to help another realm. And that's where the magical Harry Potter element comes in. There's this other realm filled with all kinds of beings that have magical elements and magical creatures that can perform types of magic. And so that's how I fused those two worlds together and how Lobo was born. So my other book, the one that was first published and is now a series, is The Dead Club. The Dead Club was created when I was in San Antonio. I was at a workshop, for a writer's workshop, and we had just an icebreaker. You walk in and they said, come up with a hook, 1 or 2 lines that if someone were to read it, they said, oh, this is interesting. I want to keep reading. I want to know more about this thing. So in 10, 15 minutes we did it, and I came up with a line that was similar to, a boy dies, wakes up in the afterlife, and realizes that it's broken, and he's been brought there to help find out why. Okay, kept on going with the workshop, everything finished, came home, and it was bugging me for a few days, for a few weeks, until finally I realized I had enough for a whole story. And that story blossomed into The Dead Club, and these kind of dead superheroes that he and other friends that are brought together, and they have to fix something that's broken in the underworld. They're there, nobody knows why. And it is now my first series. The second book is out now, and the third book will be out fairly soon. And so that's how Dead Club was born. My name is Manuel Ruiz. I hope you enjoy my books and my stories, and thank you for your time. Talk to you soon.